Welcome to Gerald Khalil's Conversation Piece. I share my thoughts on social content in sports, politics, and entertainment. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. When the Browns selected Shedeur Sanders with the 144th pick overall in the 5th round, most viewed the selection as a steal, as Sedor was predicted to be a 1st or 2nd round pick. Well, despite the fall, he has settled in quite nicely. Currently, he's in a battle for the starting quarterback position when the season starts in September. But there's been a lot of information, good and bad, on how Sedor is doing. All you want to know is the truth, right? And it's frustrating when you can't get the truth. And you wonder, why? Well, what I can tell you is that since Shedeur is now a Cleveland Brown, and you're a fan of Shedeur, and thus hopefully a new fan of the Browns, you'll need to know who you're dealing with. So let's start off with the Cleveland media. You have your supporters and you have your haters. And a lot of these reporters, they just work as gatekeepers for the Cleveland sports teams, and especially the Browns. See, they're not like other media outlets. If you know how the New York media works, or say the Boston media works, they tend to press either the athlete or the general manager or the coach. They're going to press them for answers. They're going to ask the tough questions, and they're going to demand an answer. Cleveland media doesn't do that. All right, they'll ask a question, and the coaches or whoever will give them an answer, and that's it. Don't ask any follow-up. Don't ask any more, and they will not ask any follow-up questions at all. So it's almost like they are hired by the Browns, in this case, not to ask any tough questions. So, and it's another thing. A lot of these media outlet folks, they will take sides. And I've found that so far in this, since Shedeur has been a member of the Browns. They tend to kind of like not want to give him credit where credit is due. They always mention that he's a 5th round pick. They always mention that other folks, such as Gabriel, is ahead of him. And it's almost insulting in a sense. But I want you to check out this audio segment on how the national media handles Shedeur versus the Cleveland media. It's like, so how the national media, and in this case, when I mean national media, ESPN handles Shedeur's progress versus the Cleveland media. And so let's check it out. This is ESPN Cleveland with Tony Grossi and Chops.
We're talking about national media. We might as well keep it rolling. Kimberly Martin, who's very close to the Browns, as a national reporter, she does come to training camp. I've seen her at OTAs. She was on Get Up today, and she said people inside the Browns building. Let me get the quote right. There's people in the Browns building who 100% think Shedeur Sanders can start for this team. Your thoughts?
Was Deion Sanders in the building today? That's the only thing I can think of.
Oh, he said, everybody in the comments, he said it, not me.
Yeah, well, fine. I to be totally honest, I don't get that vibe at all. I don't have people telling me that, whispering that to me. I don't want to disparage, anybody who. It's one thing to opine that, but to report it, there's no evidence of that. He's still 4th. It was clearly 4th today.
When can he make the jump? When can he make that? Can he make that jump to 3rd? Because Tony, I'm going to be honest. He looked better than Gabriel today. And again, I know there's context to that of Gabriel was in a team and going against Denzel, and there's stuff there, but I don't know. It's just is there any chance of that or no? And then I want to also ask you, where do you think things stand between Pickett and Flacco right now? Because again, that's something no one's talking about, but that's probably the battle for QB1.
Well, it is. And I think that battle will take shape in training camp.
Okay, rather than right now.
I think this battle between the rookies is to see where they are positioned heading into training camp and who gets third team reps and who doesn't.
Okay.
And maybe that's up in the air. You know, we've seen 2 practices. That's it. We'll see 3 more next week. I think the accumulation of everything in the spring will dictate where the rookies stand heading into training camp. I don't think either of them is close to being up in the Flacco Pickett stratosphere.
Because even when you just look at the QB tracker for today, you're like, damn, Dillon Gabriel, 20 throws. Like, he had the most throws than any of them by a lot, you know?
Yeah. To 14 for Sanders and 15 to Pickett. Yeah. So he had his opportunities. Of course, he had 3 touchdowns.
Yeah.
So did Shedeur. So I think going back to that Kimberly Martin comment, I don't think anyone could make any educated guess about either of these 2 rookies right now. I won't do it. But I know what Flacco and they think Pickett can do, and there's a big separation there, I think.
So you heard what was said, and even Chumps, he seemed to have enough of Grossi. And you could almost tell by a lot of Grossi's answers that he never asked the Browns, and I'm talking about the organization, whether it's the coach or any of the players, he never asked them any tough questions. He just goes along with what's said. Next up, let's take a look at the coaches, right? So you have the coach of the Browns, Kevin Stfansky, and he had a 41-46 record. And I know he's won the Coach of the Year twice, all right? But I look at that as kind of lame in a way because, yeah, he's won it twice, but he only has 1 playoff victory. And with that playoff victory, he wasn't even present. And this was back in 2021, I believe. He was out with COVID. So another person was coaching the team. So you really, he has a playoff victory, but it's like it's an asterisk next to that victory, right? Last year, his team was in the top half of the league in penalties. The team was never prepared. The team didn't really prepare itself. I mean, or should I say, he never had the team prepared in the preseason. All right, so players were going into the regular season cold. All right, so it's like they weren't warmed up until 3 or 4 games into the season. And then it was a shame when you compared them to other teams like the Kansas City Chiefs, Philadelphia Eagles. They were playing their starters in the preseason, not the Browns. All right. The preseason activities were very soft. Kevin Stfansky can come off as very stubborn. And one of the things that really turned me off about Kevin Stfansky is that I thought he set Baker Mayfield up to fail. All right. And this was back in 2022. Okay. So and what I mean he set him up to fail, he was playing Baker when he knew Baker was hurt. Now, sometimes what you got to do, you have to protect the player from himself at times. And this was a case where I thought that Stfansky needed to do that, but he didn't. He continued to let Baker go out on the field, and Baker had one of his worst seasons. And then there was, to me, the peak of my disdain for Stfansky involving Baker was when they played against the Steelers, and they had offensive lineman against TJ Watt. And this offensive lineman was not a good offensive lineman. Baker knew it. The coaching knew it. And I don't have to go and tell you that TJ Watt had a great day sacking Baker Mayfield all day long. And it was just, it's like you're setting the team up to fail. Do you want to win? That is almost a question like, what are you doing? Do you want to win or not? So those are Kevin Stfansky. This is what you got to look out for. All right. And I know right now with Shedeur, one thing that I would hope the team would do is to build up the offensive line before he even plays, if he gets a chance to play. I know that Shedeur did well behind an offensive line that wasn't great at the University of Colorado, but this isn't the University of Colorado. This is not college football. This is pros. And, you want Shedeur to have a long-lasting career. All right. So I hope that he's doing that. But Kevin Stfansky, he can be very stubborn. And the way things went on with the Baker Mayfield fiasco, not good. I hope Stfansky has grown from that. All right, the next thing we want to look at, you got to look at the front office. And the front office is probably at the top of the list of things that you need to know about the Browns, who you're dealing with, because that's where everything just trickles down. All right. And in this case, front office, there's two folks I want to focus on. One is the owner, Jimmy Haslam, and the other is the general manager, Andrew Berry. Now, Jimmy Haslam, all right, this was the guy who had to have Johnny Manziel. It is rumored that there was a homeless person that was, I guess he was on the streets and they passed by him or something like that. And that person said, you need to get Johnny Manziel. And then from there, Jimmy Haslam said, well, you're right. I want Johnny Manziel. Don't know how true it is, but I heard those rumors. There was other facts, is that Hugh Jackson, former coach of the Browns, he coached the team. First year he went, I think, 1-15. The next year, 0-16. So 1-31 total. And then he got an extension. Okay. It just blows my mind because any other team in the NFL would have gotten rid of that particular coach. And also you have to remember he was behind the Deshaun Watson fiasco, where he signed him to a $230 million contract, all guaranteed. All right. And I know it's the GM who actually does it, but the GM has to have the backing of the owner. All right. So that's your owner for you. All right. That's who Shedeur, he's going, that's his ultimate boss is Jimmy Haslam. Okay. Then you have the GM, Andrew Berry. Okay. I mentioned the $230 million contract given to Deshaun Watson. All right. That set the franchise back for years. Okay. And they're going to be filling this for the next few years. And even when Deshaun Watson is released, and we're predicting sometime next year, they're going to have a big time cap hit, probably in the 80 something million. Anyway, so getting back to Andrew Berry. So I'm watching the draft, And when the third round came and he picked Dylan Gabriel, I'm like, okay. And I didn't like the pick because Dylan Gabriel wasn't on anyone's radar for a day as a day 2 pick, right? He was definitely slated to be a day 3 pick. So I'm like, okay, you got Dylan Gabriel. I guess, Shedeur's not going to happen. And what do you know, the next day, Shedeur happens. Now, I was happy that the Browns picked him, but it's like, okay, well, how is this now going to work? Because you picked Dylan Gabriel as a 3rd rounder, okay? And you asked the question, like, now I'm assuming that you picked the Shedeur because he was available and no one else did, but now, here with the 3rd round pick, you could have picked, let's see, like a cornerback. The Browns could use corners. Okay, Denzel Ward's not going to last forever. All right. And as what I'm hearing in camp so far, it's like Gabriel is getting more reps than Sanders. And, the question comes up, well, why is Gabriel getting more reps than Sanders when Sanders is clearly the better quarterback? Then, well, why? Oh, because Gabriel's a 3rd round pick versus Sanders being a 5th round pick. And to be honest with you, that is usually how it does work. But I just hope they don't stick to that, only because he's a 3rd round pick. And unfortunately with the Browns, they have a history, and especially with this general manager, Andrew Berry, he's going to try his best to make that 3rd round pick work, because if he doesn't, what's going to be said? Oh, there's another draft pick that failed. So this is what you got to know. You got to understand who you're dealing with. All right. And here, I just want you to take a look at something here, and with Andrew Berry. And the pick of Dylan Gabriel isn't the only pick. And if you're new, and I'm assuming I have some new Browns fans via Shedeur, but take a look at his draft history. Now, this isn't his entire draft history, but these are his most, I should say, influential picks. All right, let's start at the top here. Jedrick Wills, he's an offensive tackle. He was the 1st round pick in 2020, 10th overall. This was Berry's first draft pick as a GM. Jedrick is now an unsigned free agent. Grant Delpit, he's a 2nd round pick in 2020. He's talented, but just pretty much a decent starter. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, he's a 2nd round pick from 2021. This was Andrew's best pick, all right? He blossomed into a Pro Bowler in 2023. This is Berry's only Pro Bowler out of all the picks he's done. Unfortunately, he's out with a neck injury, so we don't know if we'll even see him in 2025. He was injured in 2024. All right, we have Martin Emerson Jr. He was a third rounder in the 2022 draft. He's just a slow corner. Other teams, they pick him out, and they just know that they could just go right past him. Receiver. So you have a speedy receiver, Emerson's going to get beat every time. All right. Next, we have DeJuan Jones. He's a 4th rounder from the 2023 draft. Now, he actually has the potential to be great. He's an offensive tackle. His main problem was weight, but he's lost a lot of that weight, and they say he looks really good right now. And hopefully this is one that'll work out for Andrew Berry. Next one, Harrison Bryant. He's a 4th rounder out of the 2020 draft. He's a tight end. He's currently with the Eagles, but while he was here, he didn't do much. I'm giving him the bust. He was a bust. Next one is Anthony Schwartz. He's a receiver, 3rd round pick out of the 2021 draft. He was a bust. He's out of the league. And Perion Winfrey, a 4th round pick out of the 2022 draft, a defensive tackle. He was a bust. He's out of the league, and he's playing in the UFL. So you see what you're dealing with there. And one more bullet point I want to make is that, again, this was the person, along with Haslam and along with Stfansky, because he had to be involved in it, got rid of Baker Mayfield for Deshaun Watson. And they had the worst signing in history for $230 million, all guaranteed. Next, let's take a look at the fans. All right, so the fans here, this is very complex because you are dealing with fans who haven't won anything in 60 plus years. Okay, the Browns last won a championship in 1964. This was before the Super Bowl era, which started in 1967. Okay, and they have been scarred with promises of getting good quarterbacks and none of them working out. And when the team left, now, and before I go to where the team left, their last great quarterback or really good quarterback was Bernie Kosar. That was in the mid to late 80s where they had Bernie Kosar. Now, when the team left for Baltimore and then they came back in 1999, I believe they've had 40 different starting quarterbacks. I do not have the exact number, but that's a lot of quarterbacks. And a lot of those guys just weren't good. It's not like they went elsewhere and all of a sudden became good. All of them, except Baker, who went to Tampa Bay and he's doing well. All of them not doing good at all. And the fans are really scarred about that. And I mentioned the Baker. They're really mad about that because they're looking at it, well, hey, if we had Baker, we wouldn't be going through this. And they're probably right. All right. Then the Brown fan can be very polarizing. Okay. Now, a lot of Browns fans, not all, but a lot of them do not like flashy type players, right? They like guys like Nick Chubb, who no longer with the Browns. He signed with the Houston Texans. Shout out to him. But they like players like Nick Chubb, someone who delivers, who's a great player, but when he runs for a touchdown, he takes the ball and hands it to the ref. That's who a lot of Browns fans like. They don't like flashing the watches or doing any dances or anything like that. That's Shedeur. So they're going to be polarizing in that case, where you're going to get a bunch of people who are going to like him and you're going to get a bunch of people who will not like him. And even if say he starts and he wins, the people who like him, they'll love him. But the people who don't like him, they're still going to be like, I don't know. I'll root for him, but I don't know. So that's what you're going to have to look out for. All right. And it was the same thing with Odell Beckham Jr. It was the same thing with Baker Mayfield. It's just how the Cleveland Brown fan is. All right. So that's my breakdown. All right. Take this information as you will. But Shedeur fans, welcome aboard. And I've said it once and I'll say it again. The cream rises to the top, and I have no doubt that Shedeur will rise to the top in time. But if it doesn't happen, then you know who you're dealing with. Leave a comment, like, share, subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.